Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're leaping into something, well, truly unexpected.
We really are.
We're looking at the surprising mechanics of tiny nematode worms
Yeah.
and how these minuscule creatures have actually inspired a brand new kind of soft robot, one capable of some seriously impressive jumps.
It's a fantastic example, isn't it, of where inspiration can pop up. I mean, who would have thought something thinner than a human hair holds the key to advanced robotics?
Exactly.
It just shows how much clever stuff is going on in nature, even, at the tiniest scales.
Right.
The main thing here is that even these really basic life forms, found practically everywhere, they've evolved these super efficient, adaptable ways to move, like this jumping ability, which is, frankly, astonishing.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we've looked at some fascinating research. It gets into the biomechanics, basically, the physics of how these things move.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, behind the nematode jump, and then the development of this bio-inspired robot that copies them. Our mission really is to understand how these seemingly simple worms pull off such complex movement.
And what that means for robots down the line.
Right. We want to give you a totally fresh perspective on this whole bio-inspired design thing.
And just to, grab your attention right off the bat, think about this. These nematodes, they can jump up to 20 times their own body length.
20 times?
Yeah, imagine if you could leap onto, like, a 3-story building.
That's incredible.
It's an amazing feat for such a tiny creature. A great example of these efficient movement strategies they've figured out over time.
Okay, let's unpack this. First off, these nematodes themselves, what exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, so nematodes, you might know them as roundworms. They're some of the most, abundant multicellular creatures on Earth. Super small, typically thinner than a human hair, like we said.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is just how diverse they are and where you find them. They live in soil, water, but also inside humans, insects, other animals.
So pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, basically everywhere. Even these, simple life forms have evolved these really efficient ways to get around.
And I gather they have a bit of a mixed reputation. Some good, some bad.
That's right. Some can be parasites, cause diseases in whatever they're living in.
Right.
But others are actually beneficial. Like in farming, certain types are used for natural pest control.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they help farmers get rid of invasive insects, protect crops. It's interesting, how you get both sides within the same type of creature.
Huh. So how did these tiny worms end up inspiring a jumping robot? Where did that idea even come from? Let's shift from the general biology to these athletic skills.
Well, it kicked off by watching how nematodes latch onto their hosts. Sometimes that involves a jump.
Okay.
So a researcher, Victor Ortega Jimenez, who was at Georgia Tech then, used high-speed cameras, really high-speed, to record these tiny worms doing their thing. And these videos show this amazing way. They bend their bodies into really specific shapes.
Specific shape.
Yeah, different shapes depends on if they want to jump forwards or backwards. It was that detailed observation that kind of unlocked the secret of how they jump.
High-speed video revealing the secrets. So let's get into the mechanics. How do they manage a backward jump?
Okay, so for jumping backward, the nematode points its head up.
Up?
Yeah, up. And at the same time, it tightens up the middle of its body, creating this really noticeable kink.
A kink? Like in a hose?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
The posture looks a lot like someone doing a squat, actually.
Okay, I can picture that.
So from that bent position, the worm just releases the energy stored in that kinked body, and it propels itself backward, end over end, almost exactly like a gymnast doing a backflip.
Wow.
Think of it like, I don't know, bending a spring really tight and then letting go. Woof.
That's a great visual. Okay, so that's backward. Now, how do they manage to go forward? What's the strategy there?
Right, so for a forward jumps, it's different. The head points straight ahead this time.
Straight ahead.
And the kink forms at the other end of the body, with that tail end pointing up.
Ah, okay. Opposite end.
Exactly. It kind of looks like someone getting ready for a standing broad jump. But instead of just hopping, the worm uses this setup to sort of catapult itself upwards and forwards.
Catapult.
Yeah. It's a different way to store and release that energy, all depending on which way it wants to go.
It sounds like they have amazing control. And I remember reading something about their center of mass, their balance point, right? That plays a big part.
Absolutely crucial. What's really fascinating is that by deliberately changing their shape, creating these kinks in different spots, they're actively shifting their center of mass. Their balance point moves.
Right?
And that lets them control the jump direction precisely, forward or backward. It's remarkable for something so tiny.
Yeah, it really is.
As Sunny Kumar, one of the lead researchers, said, changing their center of mass allows these creatures to control which way they jump. And apparently they haven't seen any other organism at this scale that can leap efficiently both ways at the same height.
Incredible control. Now, this idea of a kink, usually that sounds bad, right? Like a kink in a garden hose blocks the water.
Right, yeah.
But for these worms, kinks are good.
That's a really sharp point. Yeah, normally we think pink, problem, obstruction.
Mm-hmm.
But here, for the nematode, these kinks are actually the secret sauce for jumping.
Huh.
Ishant Tiwari, another lead on the project, put it nicely. He said something like, kinks are typically deal breakers, but a kink nematode stores energy that is used to propel itself in the air.
Wow.
It's a perfect example of nature repurposing something that looks like a flaw into something ingenious. The kink isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the energy storage mechanism.
So these nematode gymnastics directly led to building a robot. Tell us about this machine.
Right, so the team at Georgia Tech built this 5-inch soft robot, directly inspired by how the nematodes jump.
5 inches, okay. Soft robot.
Yeah, it's made from a flexible silicone rod, but it's reinforced with a carbon fiber spine.
Carbon fiber. Wow.
Well, think of the carbon fiber, giving it strength, and importantly, allowing that super fast release of energy without the robot just flopping or breaking.
Makes sense.
And the really impressive part, this legless robot can jump up to 10 feet high.
10 feet? Seriously?
Yep, as high as a basketball hoop.
With no legs. That's wild.
It really shows the power of copying even these seemingly simple biological tricks.
So what was the journey like? Going from watching a tiny worm wiggle to building a 10-foot jumping robot?
It was pretty methodical, actually. They started, as we said, by watching the nematodes really closely with those high-speed videos.
Okay, observation first.
Then they made computer simulations to really understand the physics in the model, what was going on.
Right, the model.
Based on those simulations, they built different soft robot prototypes. Tried things out.
Trial and error.
Exactly. And that's when they found that adding the carbon fiber reinforcement really boosted the jump acceleration and performance, gave it the rigidity needed for those big jumps. It was this whole cycle. Observation, simulation, building, testing, led by Sunny Kumar and Ishant Tiwari in Professor Saad Bamla's lab. And they also worked closely with Victor Ortega Jimenez, who made the initial observations, and researchers over at UC Riverside.
Sounds like a real team effort. You mentioned the kinks help the worms store energy. Does the robot use that same idea?
Absolutely. That was a key finding. The controlled kinking in the worm's body lets it pack a lot of energy for the jump.
Right.
And what's also amazing is how fast it releases it. Just 1/10 of a millisecond. Super quick.
Wow.
Which enables those incredibly fast leaps. The robot copies this exact principle. It shows that you can harness these controlled instabilities, these kinks, for really efficient energy storage and release. Lets it jump again and again.
So it's about storing energy efficiently and releasing it incredibly fast.
That's the essence of it, yeah. Just like the
Okay.
meow.
This is all just it's really cool. So, okay, stepping back, what are the potential real-world uses for this? Why is it important beyond just, understanding how worms jump?
Well, the potential for robotics looks pretty exciting. This work points towards a new way to design robots that can handle really varied, tricky terrain.
Like what kind of terrain?
Well, imagine places where wheels or legs struggle. The ability to jump different heights, move flexibly, change direction mid-air almost. That opens up possibilities.
Okay.
Sunny Kumar actually mentioned this context. He said a jumping robot was recently launched to the moon.
To the moon.
Yeah. And other leaping robots are being created to help with search and rescue missions, where they have to traverse unpredictable terrain and obstacles.
Search and rescue makes sense. Rubble, uneven ground.
Exactly. This nematode-inspired design could give those kinds of robots a whole new level of agility and adaptability, get into places others can't.
So we might see future robots hopping around disaster zones or even other planets inspired by a worm.
It's definitely possible.
It really drives home the power of looking to nature for engineering ideas. Makes you wonder what else is out there, right? What other natural tricks could we learn?
Precisely. This research is just such a great example of how digging into fundamental biology can spark really innovative engineering.
Yeah.
Like Sunny Kumar said, our lab continues to find interesting ways that creatures use their unique bodies to do interesting things, then build robots to mimic them. It really highlights the value of bio-inspired design. It's a huge source of creative, effective tech.
And before we finish up, we should probably mention the support that made this work happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's important. The work got funding from the National Institutes of Health, the NIH.
Right, medical research.
And the National Science Foundation, the NSF, which funds basic science and engineering.
Okay.
There are specific grant numbers if anyone wants to dig really deep, but essentially major federal support. And the findings were published in the journal Science Robotics.
Good to know. All right, let's try and wrap this up. What are the absolute key takeaways from this deep dive into jumping worms and robots?
Okay, I think the main things are, first, this seemingly simple jumping by tiny nematodes. It's actually driven by really clever body mechanics, controlled kinks, shifting their center of mass. It's sophisticated stuff.
Right, not simple at all.
At all. And second, this unique biological strategy directly inspired a soft robot that's surprisingly agile. It can make these big leaps, control its direction.
Yeah.
And the advantages that gives the robot, beyond just jumping high, could be things like adjusting its landing, navigating cluttered spaces better, basically mirroring that precise control the nematode has.
It really is one of those aha moments, isn't it? Realizing the complexity and, frankly, the power hidden in the smallest creatures.
Right.
And understanding those basic principles could genuinely change how we design technology. So for you listening, hopefully this deep dive gave you a focused, maybe even fun look at this cool intersection of biology and robotics. A bit of a shortcut to understanding some pretty cutting-edge research.
And maybe it leaves us all with a final thought to chew on. Considering how energy efficient and adaptable these bio-inspired jumping systems are, what other seemingly simple things in nature might hold the keys to solving big engineering problems we haven't even thought of yet?
A great question.
The natural world, it just keeps offering up these amazing surprises and solutions. There's so much more to learn.